Hey guys, this is Jen Razza from Our Change of Art, and today I'm making this video for a special occasion. Recently, the folks at Tombow contacted me to try out their Xtreme permanent adhesive tape runner, and they sent me this along with one other thing. Pretty cool, huh? Now I'm a member of Sticky University. Let's get started. So I decided I'm going to be doing some watercoloring on today's card. I really love painting on Bristol paper, and it's really a nice smooth surface. You don't get those bumps that you would have like in a cold press or rough watercolor paper. And I'm going to be prepping my surface for some heat embossing, and I'll be using a little bit of cornstarch to do this. This is like the poor man's powder bag right here, and I just take an old paintbrush and just kind of dust some onto the surface, and this will help get rid of the static that you would get sometimes, not always, but sometimes you get those little stray embossing powder bits that stick everywhere that you don't want it. So it's like the most important part in the middle where you don't want any embossing powder. Of course, that's always where it ends up. So this is going to help prevent any of those stray bits from getting on my project, and the embossing powder is just going to adhere to the ink that I put down on the paper. Now, this Bristol is, I think it's 110 pound. I may need to double check on that, but it's a really nice thick weight, but I will be mounting this later to my card base. You can make a card base out of this Bristol, but I found that sometimes when you watercolor, even on watercolor paper, you do end up with just a little bit of warping, and I do want to prevent that. Now, the stamp I'm going to be using is from Altenew, and it is from the Quilled Elegance stamp set. And this is just the Quilled Hello. I really love the detail in this stamp, and whenever you have a stamp with a lot of detail, it's a good idea to use a stamp press. It's a little bit flexible, so you'll be able to get into every little area on your stamp. Now, this is cut just larger than the card base. I like to trim things down a little bit later, especially when I'm painting. So I'm just going to eyeball this as centered as I can get it. I'm not really too worried though, because I could always fix that later when I trim it if it's a little bit uneven. And just apply even pressure all over the stamp press. Okay, now I just have some white embossing powder. This one's from Stampendous, but you can use any embossing powder you like. I've been stamping for quite a few years, and I've actually only ever bought one bottle of embossing powder. This is still the original that I got way back when. And I can tell already that the cornstarch is doing an awesome job at resisting the powder. So I don't have any of those static stray pieces. Alright, just give me a moment. I'm going to finish covering this up, and then I will heat set it. Now, other than the embossing, I also went ahead and taped this down to my grid mat. Now, to the side here, I have a cup of water, and my watercolor palette is over here, as well as just a brush. And I was thinking about how I wanted to do this painting. Part of me just wanted to put like a really pretty wash of color over the whole thing. And then part of me wanted to just make it really precise and do some nice shading. So I think I'm going to do the nice and shaded version. Now, anytime you want watercolor to blend on the surface of your watercolor paper or cardstock or Bristol or whatever you're using to paint on, I want you to do a wet on wet technique. So that means you're just going to take some clean water and paint it onto the surface of the area that you'd like to be painted. And then when you drop in the color, you're going to see that it's going to start blending right there on its own. All I did was touch the corner, and all of a sudden now the paint is traveling to other areas of the letter. Now, when you want to have a harsh line, or you want there to be a really crisp delineation between two different areas, that's when you can do wet on dry, and you're going to paint directly onto dry watercolor paper. Now, I'm sure this is going to take me longer to do than you're interested in watching, so I'll either cut to the next stage, or maybe I'll fast forward through some of this and put on some nice music so you guys can watch, just in case you're curious about the technique. But otherwise, I will see you when this is finished painting. Alrighty, other than finishing up my painting, which I really like how it came out, I also trimmed down this Bristol panel and did a few other things while you guys weren't watching. I stamped this. This is also from the Quilled Elegance set from Altenew, and it says sending you sunshine, and that will get adhered there. But first, I want to mount this to my card base. So this is just a plain black card base that I scored using my Teflon bone folder, of course. And this is where I'm going to tell you go buy one if you haven't. It is a worthwhile investment, I promise. And I creased that along there and used the bone folder so there's no shine. And now I get to use my Tombow runner. So the way that the Xtreme runner works is a little bit different than maybe some of the tape runners that you have. When you apply your adhesive, you're going to come down like usual, and then to release, you push off to the side like this. It's like a swipe action. Now I have to be honest, it took me some time to get used to this, and I think when I first started I was trying to tape like a little tiny strip of cardstock, and I ended up ripping the whole thing when I did the swipe. So this is definitely better for larger panels like this, or maybe thicker cardstock. And even though it didn't warp all too much, you could see a little bit of bend, I wanted to get a little extra adhesive in the middle. And this stuff is seriously sticky. Like, this is perfect for adhering those things that have some trouble, like maybe plastic, like acetate sheets, or if you were going to use like a rough cardstock, or the Tim Holtz watercolor paper, that's pretty rough and hard to stick down. So now I've got to be really sure of where this is going before I firmly press it. So let me just line things up here on my card base. And that looks good. And now I'm just going to press firmly around the edges. And now I can add my little sentiment, sending you sunshine. And then we can call this card done. I also considered putting on some sequins or enamel dots, and I played around with a few different ideas, but I think I like this one nice and clean and simple so that you can really see the watercolor without having too much distraction. So thank you so much for stopping by today, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.